and a whole other business.
Yeah.
Somebody signs somebody up to do something, and then that thing happens.
Yeah.
But it is a thing that everybody's doing, and it's a big money maker. It's a big money maker for bands, and that's the
Yeah.
kind of, and that's what it is now. Playing live music really is the way to survive. I think it
Yeah.
has a bizarre kind of consequence that it's actually good in a way that maybe I'm not sure now. Recorded music sales, Spotify is an awful machine, and it's so anti music, and then it's like that forces you to do what everybody did in ancient times. You got to strap on your instrument and you've got to play,
Yeah.
and I think the world is better for it, for live music.
Yeah, but if you think about it, right? So a new album, right? Whatever band, it costs, I don't know, $100,000 to record, to produce, hire an engineer. Okay, how we recover that investment? Fewer and fewer
Yeah,
people in the world are buying CDs and vinyl or Spotify. You need to have like a million hits to get a $10, check. So
yeah,
one way to recover that investment, the band need to tour, and
yeah,
tour is expensive. So the merchandise section, well, we need to sell on average, $3,000 now in merchandise between pictures, CDs, and sign stuff.
yeah,
To in order to
yeah,
end up recover that investment that you put in my hypothetical example of $100,000. So
yeah, yeah.
it's they need to do it.
Yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it,
Yeah.
and it's been done, and people are doing it. So it's the thing. Yeah, I never really focused much on it or had much to do with it, but yeah, I realize. Yeah, it's a very necessary part of it all. It's not like it's a new thing either. It's something that's always been there. But I think in the latter years, there's definitely everything's commodified with much more intensity now,
Yeah.
and so it has a higher place than it used to, I think.
Yeah.
And everybody wants a piece of something. Everybody wants a piece of something.
That's right. In 2021, you end up working with the Suitcase Orchestra, a
Oh yeah,
live interactive installation commissioned by a couple of people. What the name just bring my call my attention. The Suitcase Orchestra.
I know.
Feel
I
free to
I
elaborate
had
on
a
what it was.
I had a project in 2000 and I can't remember, it was 16 or 17 there. It was called the I was going to say the Abandoned Orchestra, but it was the what do they call it? It's down. Anyway, it was an orchestra of the automated orchestra,
Yeah.
and so that was kind of like a culmination on all the stuff I'd done over the years, working with electronics and recycled materials. And so the orchestra, the Suitcase Orchestra, was one avenue of all of that, which got very complex. But I'll just explain the rest of it first. Was that with the whole PhD thing in music and autism, and trying to create instruments, electronic instruments that use sensors, just to pull down that physical barrier with things, I kind of added to that and made a lot of physically playable instruments via MIDI. So I was using solenoids and servos and other lovely goodies from the sweet shop to sort of play all the instruments, the physical ones that I had built. And that was done through microprocessors and Arduinos and things like that, which are programmable. And I love all that kind of thing. So I ended up with, which was an installation in the town hall, so you had I had a tree in the garden that I removed, and I brought it for the centerpiece for this exhibition because the town hall was a very, very large room. And up in that tree, I had a bowron, which was like the moon, and that had solenoids in that playing the bowron, and around that I had various garden implements, spades, shovels, cymbals, drums, and other guitars, and some of those were played bowed instruments as well, and they're made from printers. so many, and this is where I'd go to the junkyard and bring home all the printers that I could to just pull out all the tracking pieces that you could easily program then to sweep across the strings by replacing parts with, say, the bow, programming that in with the Arduino, and then putting it into MIDI, and then creating pieces on a keyboard, and then having that loop. And there's something really interesting in this that I never thought about before. As the entire orchestra, such automated orchestra, was playing, there was this lovely beauty between sequenced music and naturalness of playing. It's a funny thing because everything was in time, in its place, but because of the interface between receiving the MIDI message, making something mechanical like a solenoid or a servo move, there's some give, there's some discrepancy in there, as if it was a human. And so that combined, but with every bar repeats at a certain time and all of that, and this lovely discrepancy in the mechanical build of it, just produced this, I don't know, this sensation I'd never even had before listening to music. So if you had if you had machines that were way tighter and more specific, not specific, precise, it would have a totally different outcome. But MIDI music, playing mechanical music instruments in this fashion, just created this built-in human element. So it had an entity of its own, and I just loved every aspect of that. And then we had the dry ice coming in there, and the lights from above, and it was like a soundtrack. Then soundtrack to a train passing through Transylvania at night time. It just so good. It gave me the idea. Then I should do a lot more with that, and then have a whole projector synced to that. So I've got some of those ideas. Whether I get around to doing them or not is another story. But the Suitcase Orchestra, sorry to come back to your question, was just a further point along the track with that, and it allowed me to create basically a traveling suitcase. Opened up, and inside there were little dolls, xylophones, little tape recorders, all sorts of manner of objects that were remotely played as well, electro-mechanical, and once again synced up to a microprocessor receiving MIDI notes. And this is where it's different. It was hooked up to the internet, so we created a web page where you could type in something type into a bubble, poetry, anything you wanted, and the orchestra would play something according to what was typed in. So it was just using an algorithm that I'd programmed into it, and that meant that you could go online, you could see through the video cam the orchestra lit up in a suitcase, type something in, press send, and then there's a delay of a few seconds, and away it would play something original according to what you had typed in,
Yeah.
And that was nice. That was nice because when I was studying my PhD, I always thought it would be a lovely thing to make bespoke instruments is the thing really for me, and to make something that was particular to two people. So two people at any place in the world could have their own instrument on a wall, and each person could type and send a message to the other, musical, and at any point that instrument would play on the wall, just to make a connection between two people or more if you wanted it. And I thought, obviously it's not an efficient way of communicating, but that's not the point here. The point is to make something unique and bespoke that has a different value to those people using it, a way of communicating. And so the orchestra was really pulled from that original idea.
Yeah. In 2019, you were part again of the Dead Can Dance European Tour.
Yeah.
What memory do you have from that one?
Memories, lots of memories.
Or anecdote or something funny or whatever you want Share with us.
Anecdotes, rock and roll stories,
Right.
anecdotes. Um, well, for me, it was good because it was years since I'd played with Dead Can Dance, so that was a big deal.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that immensely. Um, Anecdotes. I don't know. I think it's just more. Just there's nothing of any particular kind of craziness. Oh well, there's actually one funny thing that did happen. We were leaving. Geez, was it this one or was it 22? Now I can't remember. I think it was 2019. But um, and this goes back to how do things roll and the road manager being important and everything else. And of course, there was a communique that said, right, you got to be out of the hotel at whenever it was. I can't remember, 20 past 9 or something there. And the bus leaves at 25 past or something like that. The bus decides to leave 5 minutes early, and I'm on time. And I just watch the bus take off. And I'm thinking at that point, as it didn't look like it was going to stop, I'm thinking, I don't know where I am exactly. I certainly don't know the name of the venue because I haven't looked at it in advance, And how the hell am I going to get to wherever it is I'm supposed to be going? Eventually, the bus stops, and then I get on, and it's funny. It's funny, but it could easily go the wrong way. And then because the funny thing about it for me was that it happened before, like a long, 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 long time ago, back in the early '80s. And the bus that we were traveling on was a double decker, and coming into Amsterdam, I think it was. No, it was Utrecht, and the bus wouldn't pass under the bridge. So the bus driver had to turn around, find an alternative route to get to the venue. And so 3 or 4 of us jumped off the bus and went into a local shop to buy whatever. And I just happened to have this fascination for doubly salted Dutch licorice. So I ended up buying a couple of packets. The last person leaves, and I'm just going through the checkout. They jump on the bus. I come out of the shop, and the bus takes off down the street. And once again, I'm not really sure where I am, or even the name of the venue. And up to this point, the roll call used to be, is everybody on the bus? Everybody would shout, yeah, and the bus would take off.
That's right.
Except for me. So I'm running up the road, chasing after this bus. And the bus stops at the lights. Nobody knows I'm missing, so nobody's looking for me. And then the bus takes off again. And so anyway, I come across a couple of people on bikes. I ask them what's the directions to the city center, guessing the gig's going to be somewhere around the center. And they give me directions, and off I go. And I have it in my head, right, I'll just walk into a newsagent's, look for a music magazine, see where the gig is and all of that. And I did. Found a magazine with Brendan and Lisa on the front of it, explained my story, and the guy laughed, and then he sent me on into town. And the fucking worst thing about it was that I get into the gig, and nobody knew I was missing off the bus.
Oh my God, man.
Can
And
you
that was
believe it?
before the internet, before cell phone
Yeah.
that you call someone.
Oh,
Yeah.
completely. I mean, imagine if it happened leaving a city, going to another city,
Yeah.
another thing altogether. But so that's what happened to me in 2019, a little remnant of something that happened 20, 30 years before.
Yeah.
But funny all the same. Still funny, though.
Yeah. In 2018, you were commissioned to write music and for another film called Tong. I think you
Oh,
directed
yeah.
you wrote that and directed that. Feel free to.
Yeah, with my partner, Nuria. She's a director of photography. She's from Barcelona.
Got it.
She's fantastic. So that was a commission from the county council for a short film. And that idea was really to sort of, because where we are here in Cavan, we're on the border with the north. And so there's a whole other culture around the border counties. I suppose it's like a subculture as such, but because it's a mixture of north and south. And that's a complex thing over the history of Ireland kind of thing. But it's its own communities there. And what I love about it is the different blends of music and attitudes as well.
Yeah, I lost you for a minute.
Create something that.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So the idea with Tong was to create a short film involving musicians from both sides of the border. But it just has a much more universal kind of reach, really. But we need a border as such for it to work. So, and here beside Cavan, like we're on the border with the north, and of course, you know, it's not something you physically necessarily see, though you can see all the appearances of how the road markings change, et cetera, and other things. So you know when you're going from the south into the north. But when you're on the waterways, it's less obvious because there are no borders really at the end of the day. They're ridiculous things. And so the film was about that travel across water and picking up musicians along the way that would come with us. And then we ended up on Loch Uta, and there's O'Reilly's Castle there in the middle of that on a small island. And the film culminated in a musical performance amongst ourselves for that. But it's not a scripted. It wasn't so scripted. It was a funny idea in the head. You often have these ideas in your head. As soon as you actually go to do them, you realize, oh, there's a huge gap between what you thought and what you can do or you're going to do or even explain to somebody else. And that mostly was all improvised on the day, which was, I don't know, it's something that I always end up doing at the end of the day is mostly improvising. So we ran around and we filmed that and played and took boat journeys along the waterways. But Tong is the language of music. You know, it's that universal language. So that's why we called it Tong, really, you know. It's the one thing we did without speaking to each other.
Yep, yeah. That's good. In '95, you end up touring with Lisa. Lisa, of course, that can dance, and you know, feel free to what you remember, recollect, and feel free that you know, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. Well, that's kind of cool because, like we were saying earlier, it was so the best way to start is probably rehearsal. So when Lisa came back from Australia, and that was in '95, she had already recorded an album, the Mirapool, I think it was, and so she had X amount of songs for that. And yeah, we rehearsed all those songs in the church. But myself and Lisa, we also wrote about 5 pieces, I think, and they're all varied as well in style too. And we played those live, which was fantastic. So it wasn't just the album that she was promoting. And that's what I'm interested now in putting together with her next year, because I think that's going to be very worthwhile. So a lot of my memories are actually waking up, having coffee, and putting on the recorder and going through songs, writing stuff together. And with Lisa, it's a very interesting process. It's an easy process, and it's a very natural process. And it's exciting as well, and which gives you a lot of energy to constantly make more things and continue. So the day, and then we'd get together with the band, and then we would rehearse all the songs then together. So for me, that was a split between writing stuff together and then rehearsing the album for the tour. And I think as well, back in those days, because after that tour was the Deck and Dance tour in '96, and that was Spirit Chaser. Yeah, and that was fantastic. That was absolutely fantastic. But there's something about that period. It was a great summer as well, but there was a different feeling, I think, in the air. Everybody was a lot more kind of hippie-ish, really, and very relaxed and easygoing. That's what I draw from that '95, '96 period. After that, things are kind of very different. But and Deck and Dance's lineup changed there. So for me on the Lisa tour, That's what it was. It was very, very loose, and we just enjoyed hanging out, really, and traveling.
Good for you, man. Good for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
Hopefully, you will be able to, the two of you, release the material that you mentioned.
Oh, so we're always talking about it, but one thing leads to another, and you never kind of do. But it was nice being off, asked or invited to do this
Yeah,
thing with Marcello. So,
yeah,
yeah, and Lisa's very good. She's very, very good.
yeah.
She's very, very good, and she has a very unique way of working, which is, yeah, yeah. Couldn't say enough good things about that lady.
I'm with you, man. Yeah, I'm becoming a very good friend with Marcello, and we talk about the people that he's invited to that particular record with Lisa, yourself, and other great musicians out there. I I I have heard a little bit of the composition and the process that Marcello goes um, to put all the pieces for different people, and it's going to be a very 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 good album for what I heard, man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's good. I haven't heard a scratch. Only the rough kind of demo thing that was sent to me,
Yeah,
and I just know there's a whole pile of other production that goes with that, of course.
yeah,
So it'll be completely different from what I heard, and
yeah,
I'll be looking forward to that definitely.
yeah. I'm quite sure. I'm quite sure. And a lot of people in general terms have asked me, what do you think is the future of Dead Can Dance, as far as you can, as far as you know, as
Oh,
far as you feel any
well,
possibility for them
I don't.
to write
Yeah,
together, tour together? Because I know that
yeah,
Brendan is re-releasing, some of the old albums that he had, and I think a remaster and maybe working new material. And Lisa, of course, touring with Dead Can Dance. I mean, I'm sorry, with Hans Zimmer, I play with other people. Is there any
yeah,
possibility in general terms, without
yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things. It's really best to ask.
them?
Um, really
I
best
don't
to
want you to
ask.
get in trouble.
Well, I could say a lot of stuff, but
No, no,
that's
no.
not really my place to be saying it. And
Sure, of course.
everything has its
Mhm.
natural time. You know, it's very easy to say. It could, on one hand, you could say, "Oh, that's never going to happen again,"
Yeah,
but you also know there's that. What's that famous James Bond line? Never say never, or name of that film anyway.
that's right. Yeah,
Never say
yeah.
never again. I mean, because it's been said many times before that won't happen again, and it has.
Mhm.
So, because everything constantly changes, and
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. You've just got to do the things that actually feel good and
No,
natural and
absolutely.
inspire you,
You know,
and just you know, it.
it's
I think it was hard for them. It can be hard for them,
yeah,
um,
absolutely.
and that's why things are the way they are. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's easy for me to say, "Hey, where's the new album coming up, and where's the new tour?" And
yeah,
people evolve in time. Lisa and Brendan
yeah.
live in different countries, well, different continents altogether to begin with, and then and
Yeah, well, that's the way they always did it, though. I mean,
yeah,
Brendan never went to Australia to record. Lisa
yeah,
always had to come here, So,
yeah,
I mean, and she did it, But it's tough. I think it's tough, and you kind of have to give them that space, really.
absolutely,
Um,
man. Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Not giving anything away.
What are you working on nowadays, man?
Um, right now, well, the last thing I did was the Clonus Film Festival, so that's nice.
Yeah,
Working with my daughter is really interesting.
really.
Uh, yeah, really, really interesting because it's working with somebody but them musically as well. So that's kind of has that extra added bonus, and
Yeah,
we had to work really hard um, for the soundtrack. And we just found it was really interesting and easy to come up with lots of ideas. And so over COVID as well, the interesting thing is, the pedal mania, I think, hit a lot of people. And so I've been exploring a lot of boutique pedals and sounds because I do like sound at the end of the day. And she's very excited to get into pedals and things. So she's exploring that, and she's put an EP together. She's still working on that herself. And so I'm helping her do that with percussion and sounds. And I just love to keep working with her, really. I think it's fantastic. But she's exploring things, and I'm exploring things, and I think we'll push that further. But it's like anything else. You just have to have a number of things going, I think, just to explore all the avenues and satisfy your needs, really, you know. But yeah. Finding people to work with that you can work with. You can't take it for granted. You can't take it for granted, you know. So people when you find them. It's my advice.
I'm happy that you're working with Marcello and Lisa, and then hopefully you will be releasing that material with Lisa from 1995 or so. And but people, I'm biased, right? I really love Dot Can Dance, and all of you that have participated, were being, Peter, and David, Lisa, Brendan, Astrid, Jules, yourself, and it's a great band. Have given so much satisfaction to many people all over the world, and maybe one day we'll see them, or if not, buy the music and buy the CDs, or it's a great music, man. I'm very happy that Brendan and Lisa took the risk, put the band together some years ago, and people don't know at the beginning when they arrived in London in the Isle of Dog. Peter Woolrich was telling me that they were very, very poor. They didn't have a place to crash at the beginning or food to eat at the end of every day. So people think that the life of rock stars or so are making billions or this or that. That is not the case.
No. I mean, we were all running around
very poor, man.
Scrounging off each other and living out of each other's pockets and all that sort of crack.
Yeah.
But there you go. That was the thing that Brendan and Lisa were very, very focused and determined.
That's good, man.
And they made it all the way through. They made it all the way through, and there's a lot to be said for that. To follow something through, just follow it through, whatever it is. Just keep it going and make it go all the way through, and you'll be in a different place than you were when you started. That's for sure.
Yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes, Robbie, people give up too easily. Whether you are a painter, a musician, or a mechanic, or whatever your profession, it doesn't work the first time, the second time. Hey,
I know.
I'm not going to do this. I want to go back to school or get a day job or whatever. But at the end, you need to follow your inner strengths and whatever is appealing to you, right?
Yeah. Look, there's nothing wrong with giving up and going and working in the corner shop. There just isn't. Sometimes it's easier to do the thing you love and keep it away from a living and make your money in some other fashion. There's so many fantastic musicians that aren't professional out there in the world, but as people do say, it's the objectives, what your objectives are. Not everybody can be on everybody's mind at the same time. So what you can do is, and your objectives generally, if you're an artist and such, is that you're doing it because you're propelled to do it. You cannot. It's an affliction. Creativity is an affliction. It's not something you can really turn off unless you damage something, and you have to produce it and you do it. And as long as you're doing it, it doesn't matter what your day job is. I mean, if you can make some money out of it and make a living, then all the better. But as soon as you stop enjoying making your music, then something's wrong.
Absolutely.
So you've got to do it. You've got to have the objectives, and you've got to do it. So to give up, what does that really mean? To give up, Yeah. You just don't try not to be jaded. in what you do. Do it because you're interested, not because you want to, you know. I mean, you know, it's sensitive advice, really. At the end of the day, you know,
Yeah.
sensitive advice. You kind of have to find out for yourself in some ways. Just to, yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, Robbie, man, we've been talking to an hour. I'm quite sure we'll do a part two of this interview soon. It was very nice talking to you. You are a great guy. You have been
Oh,
part of one of the best band in the history of music. You
that's
are,
very, very
finishing your
privileged.
PhD. You work with a lot of kids with special needs. You're doing something good in the world, man. Besides the
Yeah, well,
music, besides the money, and besides the electronic and creating music, writing film scores, working
yeah.
nowadays with Lisa and Marcello. So you're doing well, man.
Okay, thank you very much, Claudia. That's really nice. That's really nice.
And hopefully I will make it to Ireland. We'll get together. I will take you out to dinner. And if you are
Oh,
here in
look,
Washington D.C., you're
yeah.
welcome to come here for dinner. You will have the best time of your life.
Well, equally, if you come here, you're welcome to stay here, and we will do some cooking.
You bet, man. Thank you very much, man. It was very
All
nice
right,
talking to you, Robbie. Have a great
you
afternoon
too,
as well,
sir. You
man.
too, sir. Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.